A man now living in the afterlife who gave his name as Charles Morgan came through in a Leslie Flint seance. He described his passing from the body because he had a stroke, and he was surprised and delighted when his deceased mother came to him. This is the second in a series of 3 videos that contain narrations of Charles Morgan's descriptions of finding himself out of his body, his reunion with his mother, and what his new life in the afterlife is like. Hello, I'm Dr. R. Craig Hogan, President of the Afterlife Research and Education Institute and Seek Reality Online. I'm the author of 8 books with the evidence you will come to the end of this life, but you will never die. Leslie Flint was a direct voice medium in the 20th century. A direct voice medium has the remarkable ability to sit in a darkened room, and voices come from an ectoplasmic voice box that forms on the medium's shoulder. Today we have over 2,000 recordings of both famous and ordinary people who spoke for as long as 45 minutes to people on this side of life sitting in the room with Flint. This video is the second of 3 videos in which a man named Charles Morgan spoke with Leslie Flint and the 2 people who were recording the seance who were sitting in the room with Flint. In this video, Morgan describes his having a reunion with his mother in the afterlife. She helps him realize he has left his body behind, but is very much alive. This is a narration of the words Morgan spoke, taken from the recordings of the Leslie Flint seance.
That was I last remembered. And as I was thinking, it was as if I've seen my mother in this photograph till she was standing in front of this bed, looking radiant, and I thought to myself, this is also so extraordinary. Why should I see Manna, as she was at that time, come back when she was a young, vital woman? And of course, as I saw her, she was dressed exactly identical in every remembrance that I had in that photograph. And somehow it was as if I could hear her voice speaking to me, and I could hear her say, "Now don't worry, I'm here. I'm sorry I'm late." And I thought to myself, I just must be kidding. As I was listening and talking to myself, and I was saying to myself, what does she mean about being late, and what's she doing there, staring and looking like that? Because that looks to me as if it's that photograph, and I was thinking, well, I must be going through a very weird dream, and I could hear her saying quite distinctly in a very strong, clear, firm voice, "Don't worry, dear, I'm sorry I'm late, it's perfectly all right." And I could hear myself saying in reply, "What am I doing here? And what are you doing there? What's all this about? I must be dreaming." She said, I heard her say, "You are not dreaming, dear, you're not dreaming, you're here with me." I said, "What do you mean?" "I'm here with you. I'm here in my own room. I am my own bed. And you know, Mother, you've been dead many years." She said, "But my dear, that's exactly what's happened to you. You are dead. Now you're with me." I remember hearing myself say, "But then if I'm dead, why am I here in my room? What are you doing there all dressed up like that, as you were many years ago in that photograph?" She said, "Oh, well, I did that for various reasons. Well, because I thought it would help you. And also, you was very fond of my bed. That head, that hair, remember how you used to pull back that 18 years? They used to say to me, 'Oh, you did used to pull up in those days. You don't seem to bother now.' Because tell you, Mother got to the point where she never bothered very much about dresses. She used to have an own because she's always been a very smart woman up to all the last few years. And it was a little joke between us. And I used to make Mother dress up, and I used to often do her hair for the last few months of her life. And her strike keeper died. And she used to be such a fussy woman in the earlier years. And she said, 'Don't you remember, dear, how you used to do my hair, and how you used to do things wrong and used to fasten me, and how you used to try and make me keep up to the mark, as you said?' So I thought I'd better come looking smart to fetch you, and I'm sorry I knew that you were soon coming because I sensed and felt it for 17 days. Because then you don't know it, she says. You had a heart attack and died. I said, Mother, don't be stupid. I said, oh, my heart was being turned all right and never had any signs of heart trouble. She said, my dear, she said, you know, you've had heart trouble for at least 12 months and we've been with you constantly, and I knew that sooner or later that you would be coming any time, any day. But she said, I couldn't be here earlier today, and I didn't get the realization of warning quickly enough, but I came as soon as I could, and what seems perhaps a long time to you is only a few seconds. Not very long since your body was taken away to the mortuary. I said, Mother, when you took that mortuary stuff, I said, here I am, perfectly all right, I said, but I would like to have some decent clothes. I said, I can't have my wardrobe. She said, you don't want to buy a vintage wardrobe. You don't want to start thinking about it. If you want to wear a suit, then all you have to do is think. Think hard about the suit. Think without your mind. I said, Mother, how can you dress yourself just by thought? She said, that's exactly what people do know, but they don't always go deeply enough into to analyze it. Of course you can wear a suit, you can wear a Japanese kimono if you want to, which reminds me, Mother. I said, you don't dress like kimono that you used to wear. And then she said, oh, that. She said, I've got a much better one now. Because the one that I was referred to, the one she had that I brought back many, many years ago, on one of my trips when I went to Japan, she was still fond of me because she still clung to it. Anyway, she was laughing and joking away, and it all seemed so natural. And she said, come on, she said, get off that bed. Tell your mind to look inwards, she says, and then you'll see yourself as you are, and you'll feel as you really are, not as you think you were. I said, Mother, you confuse me. I said, you said I've just died, and I feel perfectly all right, except that I can't visualize myself as being dead, only seems still, being at the same time too natural. She said, you are not old anymore because you are dead.
Charles Morgan had a wonderful reunion with his mother when he left his body behind and entered the afterlife. In the same way, you will have heartwarming reunions with all the people and pets you love when you come to the end of this life and transition easily, painlessly into your next life. Links to the other 2 videos with Morgan describing his reunions with his mother and his life in the afterlife are in the descriptions below.